It is over.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Insiders interview series, and we're really glad to be back doing this again. Love to do interviews, love to have people on the show, and today is no different. We have today with us Conman. Conman, first of all, man, welcome to our show. Really glad you could spend some time with us today to chat about wrestling, man.
Well, thank you for having me, man. I've been looking forward to this for about the last 3 weeks we've been planning it.
Yeah, we've been talking for a little while. Yeah. Very busy guy, and I really appreciate you coming on and spending some time, man.
Well, you know, wrestling keeps us all busy, right? There's so much going on inside this random world we got.
Oh my goodness, it does. New news every day, breaking news, things changing constantly. Absolutely, man.
You miss one day, you're just out of the loop.
You're right. You're right. It's crazy. Well, look, let me. I know that a lot of our community already know who you are. So, for the people who may be new to you, let me just have you. I'm just going to ask you how you got started, and you know, you are one of the biggest channels out there doing this kind of thing. You know, doing watch-alongs, this and that, and so how did you get started in all this, and kind of where did your channel come from, man?
Well, it's actually kind of crazy. As we're recording this right now, tomorrow's going to be my 8-year anniversary on YouTube. So
wow,
I've been doing it for a long time. Thank you. It's been a long journey for myself. But I never really expected to end up as a wrestling channel. I started doing Minecraft videos way back in the day. Wow. And it just, I don't know how it even transitioned from Minecraft to wrestling, but one day I just watched a random episode of Raw, reviewed it, and it got like 1,000 views. I'm like, well, that's double the amount of views that I normally get. So I had to lean into it, right? And
why not?
Yeah. So I've pretty much been doing watch-alongs now for 3 years, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Royal Rumble 2017 is really where I blew up. It ended up in like the trending tab. A bunch of people watched it, almost 1 million views at that point. And ever since then, it's kind of been my passion in life, you know, talking to people online, trying to, well, like you said to me earlier, try to provide a positive way to watch wrestling. That's my whole goal here on YouTube.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're relatively new to the whole scene. We started kind of when this whole thing, the whole pandemic thing started, which everybody was kind of stuck at home. So Jeff and I knew each other from another wrestling stream, and we decided to start this back in March. So we're kind of relative newcomers to this. And it's always great to talk to somebody who's done it, who's been where, you know, who's been where we are doing kind of what we do. So what got you into, so, okay, you went from Minecraft, which of course, I mean, yeah, Minecraft was huge. It still is today. Went from that to wrestling. I mean, were you interested in wrestling all through your life?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, wrestling I would definitely say has been like my favorite thing I've ever had in my life. Like I started watching back in 2005 and haven't stopped since then. Like I'm 25 years old, so I started like when I was 10 years old, right? And so I've found like Jeff Hardy, Randy Orton, all those people, and ever since then I've been hooked on this sport. I can't get enough of it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, fair enough. So 2005, I mean, going back to that point when you started watching, who were some of the people who made an impression on you? Who were some of your favorite athletes in the sport that made an impression on you back then?
So I've honestly, Jeff Hardy, he was the first guy I ever saw. Jeff Hardy was just fantastic, but in a weird way, it was also Umaga. Umaga to me was it's a really random name to throw out there, but for me, all I can remember is this really scary looking guy on the screen who I've never seen before, obviously. And then you build up this really charismatic babyface in Jeff Hardy. All of a sudden, he became my favorite. And from that feud, when he jumped off the top of the steel cage, delivering the whisper in the wind down to Umaga, I honestly, at that point, Jeff Hardy was my guy.
Crazy that he's still, I mean, all these years later, he's still going. I mean, he's one of the primary guys now on Raw. So, yeah, it's crazy how his career has gone, and he's still out there doing it. So, So, I mean, obviously back in 2005, were you watching anything else other than WWE back then? I mean, you had Nitro probably going on back then, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, for me, it would have just been WWE at that time. I was like 10 years old. Like I said, I was just getting into the world of wrestling, and the reason I actually got into it was because my buddies were on the school bus listening to, I believe it was Edge's theme song, and Bob along to it. So I of course went home that very night and was like, how do I watch wrestling? I need to know what these guys are talking about. And that's when I found, I believe it was Friday Night SmackDown or Thursday Night SmackDown, whatever it was.
Yeah, I think it was Thursday back then. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I found it. And it was just like a slow burn becoming a wrestling fan from there. Like 2006, I would watch it occasionally here and there, but I would say probably the start of 2007, that's where like my big wrestling fandom came from.
Okay. So, I mean, I have to ask you this too, because as a perspective from myself, just kind of starting this back in March. Now, I have a bit of a journalism background. I went to college for it and stuff like that, was doing some newspaper writing. What is a newspaper, right? How many kids don't even know what a newspaper is? But back in the day, and I kind of enjoyed I was like a DJ back then. So what made you start? What made you, I know you're doing the YouTube videos and stuff like that, but what really got you going with doing like a watch along? Because it's almost like it's a different almost kind of thing where, I mean, I guess it's similar to the videos that you were doing before, but you're almost kind of narrating a show in a way, or almost like you're kind of an announcer, and people will kind of turn off the sound sometimes to listen to what you're saying. So what got you interested in doing that?
Well, I actually went to school for broadcasting, and the broadcasting was something I found a little bit later. So I started off in sport management, and then after that wasn't really the path for me, I went to broadcasting, and I had a radio show for about 6 months in the school, and it was just something that we created locally for the school. But I really enjoyed speaking into a microphone and trying to tell a story through my voice, and I think that's what led to me picking up WWE, because it's all storytelling, and it just kind of worked.
All right. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So what, obviously with let me ask you this first. How about, have you seen, have you been to live shows?
Two my entire life.
Okay.
Actually, wait, no, sorry, that's a lie. Three I've been. So one time when I was a kid, I went to like a WWE live show, and I barely remember it. It was there. I think Evan Bourne was on the card. But Survivor Series weekend, I went to that 2016 in Toronto. And so I got to see Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg in that crazy match that ended in like a minute 26. And I was there live for that. And that kind of, I guess you could also say that attributed to me becoming a WWE channel, because shortly after that, I started doing the watch-alongs. And yes, I think that's probably really the turning point there, was when I went to Survivor Series weekend.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's cool. I've been to, it's been a long time. I haven't been to live events in a long, long time, but I went to see some when I was younger. They had a lot of them in local gyms. So I got to see, like, my biggest highlight was when I was, I think, 8 or 9, I got to see Andre the Giant, which was,
what? That's cool.
Yeah, which was amazing. And it was just, again, it was like a local gym that was in my town. I mean, and they'd come to these places, and the rings were built so badly that, people would go up. I think Jimmy Superfly Snuka was there too. And at one point he went to climb to the top rope and the whole ring broke.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So
that's the good old days of wrestling.
Oh, it is. Yes. Yeah. I mean, late 70s, early 80s and stuff like that. But yeah, live shows, I going to a Survivor Series is cool. I've never been to a big pay-per-view. So did you experience were you there for like the fan experience type stuff? Were you there for the whole weekend? Were you there for just the actual show?
So I was there for TakeOver as well. The night before, which was also incredible. DIY
cool.
Versus Revival was amazing.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah, but I didn't get to really experience the whole WWE fan experience or anything like that. Just the 2 shows. And it was still a great time though. Like being amongst wrestling fans, there's a different vibe with it. Like you walk in there and you're like, I'm home.
Yeah, I would imagine. Like I said, it's been so long since I've gotten to a show. And of course now with everything going on, it's going to probably be a while longer.
It's going to be a little bit for sure.
Yeah,
and
right.
I actually also went to one other show. I don't know how I forgot this. I was at the previous SummerSlam at SummerSlam 2019 in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was there that one as well. But those are the 3 shows that I've been to.
Oh, nice. Well, that's good. I mean, you're at some big events. That's pretty awesome. So obviously you're a WWE guy. So if you had to pick a person today, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, but if you had to pick a person today, who's a guy that's out there, or woman, or you can name one of each.
Okay.
As out there that kind of really, really excites you. Like, I mean, for Jeff and myself, I can't speak for Jeff, but I mean, we have talked a lot. We even have a show dedicated to the dude. We talk a lot about Bray Wyatt.
Okay. All right.
Because of the Fiend gimmick and everything that he's doing. And I've always been a big storyline guy. Like, you catch me with a storyline and a good character, and man, I'm good to go. And that's kind of why, like, I liked him when he first came in as the cult leader, Bray. I enjoyed him then. And of course, when he left and then he came back last year as the Fiend. So him and I are probably in this. Jeff, I don't want to speak for you if there's somebody else out there that you can name, but I know you're a big Bray Wyatt guy too.
Oh yeah.
Bray's fantastic.
I'm right behind you on that one.
So, I mean, tell us one male wrestler, one female wrestler that really like that you think is just killing it.
All right. So I've been on the Drew train for I couldn't even tell you how long. Ever since he came back to NXT and won the NXT championship, I've been on the Drew train. I think he's fantastic. And I think there's still so much left to go with him. We're just only starting to see the tip of the iceberg, right? I think he is becoming the star of the past 3 years. And it's difficult to point fingers at anybody else inside of the WWE right now who's become a bigger star over the past 3 years than Drew McIntyre. You could say, Roman Reigns is doing fantastic right now, but people forget that the first couple of years of that, people hated him, right?
Oh, yeah, there was no question about that.
Yeah. So, for me, Drew McIntyre is somebody who I think you're going to be able to create memorable moments with for the next few years at least. Female performance, I think you got to give that to Rhea Ripley. She's so young, and she's already been proven on the main roster where she can go against Charlotte. I think Rhea Ripley has a ton of untapped potential.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I like Rhea a lot. I don't think that she's, the fact that she did come up to the main roster, she did fight Charlotte. I think a lot of people kind of thought, okay, she's going to kind of take off. And then, when going back to NXT, everybody was like, well, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think people look at that as being like almost a demotion in a way, but I don't necessarily think. I mean, look at Balor went there and he's thriving there now. So I don't think it's a bad thing for people to say, well, that now they're back in NXT again and they're not on the main roster. I don't even think that people really. I mean, you could tell me from your perspective, how do you look at NXT? I mean, obviously, you said you were at a live show, so how do you look at that? Do you still look at that as being a developmental league, or do you look at that as being? See, I kind of see it as more, almost like more pure wrestling with not as much storylines. That's kind of how I look at NXT. I mean, do you look at it like a similar way?
I think that's a fair way to put it. Yeah, it's definitely one of those brands that, if you're not really invested in everything, it's okay. It's going to still happen in the background and people are going to progress with their careers and it's not going to affect too much long-term. So with that reasoning, I would say it's probably still seen as developmental because people's characters change down there. Storylines aren't necessarily the most consistent. So yeah, I'd agree with that. It's still developmental, but it has this weird mix of people who are more than ready to perform on the main roster, and then a bunch of people who are nowhere near ready to perform. So it's a weird middle ground.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, all right. So you mentioned Drew. What do you think of Drew's? I mean, obviously, he was on top of the world, had that title, and you feel bad for the guy because I mean, you feel bad for all these guys who win a title, their first title that they've won, and then end up, it ends up being not in front of a crowd where they would have gotten, just an unbelievable outpouring of fans and. So I mean, what do you think of his? Obviously, he's lost the belt. He's not out of the picture. I mean, he's right back into it again. He's going to have a championship match next week, which a lot of people, some are saying that, looks kind of if maybe he's going to get that belt right back and go on to face Roman, which we'll talk a little bit about that later, about how some of that stuff didn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, what did you think of his title reign? And do you think that, people are ready again? And this is what I'll point out to you as being, this is the kind of negativity that you kind of get sometimes. And people are already saying, oh, he's done. That's it. They're going to push him out of it. He's not going to be involved in the title anymore. Orton's going to go on and face Edge at WrestleMania. And that's going to be it for Drew.
Yeah, I see where people are coming from. Like, don't get me wrong. I totally do. But I think people just need to relax when it comes to Drew McIntyre right now. The guy had a fantastic run with his title reign. Like, let's call it what it is. He won the title in front of nobody at WrestleMania, and it was still a magical moment. That takes a special performer to be able to do that, right? So it sucks, obviously, for Drew, seeing him lose the title not that long after he won it. It wasn't a incredibly long title reign, but I think in a weird way it's going to create more momentum for him moving forward. They're going to find something for him in the mid card or in the upper mid card in the time being, and if he doesn't win back that title, and they go from there, and I bet you before we know it, back at Mania, he's going to be in the title picture again.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think he's come, like you said, I think he's come a long way. And I'll ask Jeff. Jeff, what do you see too? What do you see also in Drew? I mean, we've watched this guy for a long time. In fact, he brought back memories on last night's Raw when he was talking to Sheamus, and they were kind of talking about tagging together and things like that, which was cool. But I mean, what have you seen in him that kind of excites you for the future?
Well, I think he's this. It's like a limitless pool of talent, honestly. He's a guy that when he first came in years ago, he was looked at as the next great guy. And, for whatever reasons, that didn't happen. And he had to go back to the drawing board and really redefine who Drew McIntyre is. And, he had success in TNA/Impact. And came back and had great success in NXT. And I honestly think that his ability to showcase his personality, but also be this big dominant figure that he is, kind of makes him unique because he has, great mic skills, but also he's this intimidating figure. So, I mean, I think when we're talking about Drew McIntyre, maybe 5+ years down the road, we're talking about him as maybe one of the best that we've seen, just because of the combination of all of his skill sets and the fact that he's hungry, even though he's at the top of his game right now, but he's hungry because he's had that disappointment in the past. So I think, all of those things mixed in together makes him just a star. I mean, we've only, like you said, we've only scratched the surface with him. So we're going to see a lot more. And that's what makes me excited about him.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
so
I'm very pumped to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, I mean, again, you had the people, the naysayers out there, and that happens with everybody, which is, yeah, I mean, when you see somebody, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe you feel the same way about this too, but I think that because of what we're living through, because of COVID, I think that things are changing a bit here. And I think these guys are trying to kind of entertain maybe in a little bit of a different way. We had now, granted, we just saw Bayley. She carried the belt for over 300 and some days. So she had the belt for a long time. But it almost seems as if like they're maybe trying to, I don't know, they're maybe collapsing stories a little bit more. They're maybe going for something maybe a little bit more short term, and maybe it's to keep people's interest because the fans aren't there. But I mean, do you kind of see that? Like, do you see that things aren't, that they're, they're maybe changing kind of with the times a little bit? And we may not see these guys, like if Randy drops the belt, he's had it for a couple weeks. This may be more of a common thing until we get back to normal with fans in the building.
Yeah, it could be a new norm. It definitely could be. It's also, when I think about like the stories that have been told, let's say over like the last 3 months, there has been some more longer term stories as well. Like I think Seth Rollins with Murphy and and the whole Mysterio storyline that's been going on since the horror show or whatever. Like that story. And then of course, Drew and Randy's been going on for a while now. And then Roman and Jay has been going on for a little bit at this point. I know they're just slightly moving past it, but it does seem like the major storylines run for a long time. The minor ones, the mid card, it's almost like it changes every single day. They don't have a clue what they want to do, who's facing who in the mid card. So I definitely say like towards the middle of the card, I'd agree with that statement a little more. Towards the main event, I feel like they still do want to try to play off long-term stories, but are struggling a little bit to write them with the current climate.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So let me throw some names at you here and tell me what you're thinking of the, and since we're talking about storylines, tell me what you're thinking about some storylines with these guys. So one of my favorite words to talk about on our show, and Jeff will attest, Retribution. So what do you think about Retribution? I mean, look, we all know how they started. They started by firebombing generators and breaking glass and they started as a big, they were this humongous group of people always coming in, and now it's kind of whittled it down to, we know who they are now. They're wearing masks. Ali then comes out and says he was the leader of the group and tied it in with the SmackDown hacker thing, which I thought was cool. But I mean, they're still, I don't know. I still don't know what to make of them because, they come out and they have matches and they lose. Now, last night, Ali got a big win, which was an amazing match. So, I mean, what do you think of Retribution so far?
The way that I want to attribute Retribution is if we compare them to when the Shield debuted. The Shield had this unknown vibe to them, similar to Retribution. The difference was the Shield was followed up with lots of wins, and they felt like they were credible threats right out of the beginning. Now, I know Retribution, their whole story isn't necessarily about wins, but to me, it feels more like they're writing this in afterwards as opposed to it actually being planned this way. And I think that's what's actually hurt Retribution. There doesn't seem to be the clear story. They're starting to get to what they want them to be, but there has never been a clear story with them. It's been a little chaotic at times, but not in the good way. I'd say a lot of people have become uninterested with Retribution because of their booking as well. So it's not been my favorite storyline, if I could be honest. It's not been my favorite, but I do like some of the characters in them, which is going to be good for moving forward. I think Mace has a ton of potential. That look, I don't care what anyone says, it's a dope look. That long hair, that mask, that's pretty friggin' dope. If it wasn't in Retribution and he was just a solo character with a manager, I think a lot more people would be paying close attention to him. T-Bar's kind of silly. Reckoning, you can tell it's Mia Yim. There's no real change with the character there. And Ali's been pretty cool, but again, he's been presented as almost this slimy, weaselly heel who doesn't have any backbone, which to me doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you're going to bring somebody in like that. You compared him to the Shield. I mean, I'll even look at it from an NWO standpoint. Okay. From back in the day, when you come in with an attitude like that, and a lot of the things they were doing at first were NWO-ish kind of things, stuff that they'd go in the trailer and they'd break up the broadcast and they, things like that. You come in like that, you got to come in as a tough guy. It was almost like they came in and they weren't. They were just not tough guys. Then they would have guys wrestle, like Slapjack would come in, he'd lose a match. Mia Yim would lose a match, you know, and I mean, then the whole thing with her convulsing on the mat, I still don't know what that's all about.
I can't believe you just reminded me about that. I forgot about it.
I have no idea where they were going with that. But yeah, like I agree with you. Like, I think it seems like there could be something there. You know, and the fact that they tied it in with some other stuff, but it's just, yeah, I agree with you. I think that having them lose all the time to the Hurt Business did it no good.
Did it no good whatsoever. Here was Hurt Business, who was already kind of put over with that crazy segment where they came and fought Retribution.
Yep.
This is where Retribution needed to get theirs over on the Hurt Business. It didn't make any sense to really put over this group of 4 guys who, let's face it, 3 of them had been around for a very long time over a bunch of young superstars. It just didn't make much sense to me.
Absolutely, man. And one last one I'll ask you, and then I'm going to let Jeff talk for a little bit because I don't want to take over the whole show here. So Alexa and Bray.
All right.
This to me is, and again, I'm a big Bray fan, but the whole thing where he brought Alexa in, when that whole thing happened, where he gave her the mandible claw, no, you know, I don't think anyone saw that coming. And when that happened, they're like, oh my God, like he actually gave, you know, a woman wrestler the mandible claw. And now you're seeing a transition of her where, you know, people are comparing it, Joker and Harley Quinn, but then, you know, now you're seeing it become a little bit more creepy. She's in the funhouse. No one has ever been in the funhouse interacting with Bray. Now we got Seth Rollins, of course, going in there to attack him in there. We got Braun in there attacking him, but no one's been in there interacting with him like this. So this intrigues me. I don't know where this is going to go. And then, of course, last night they were supposed to have a moment of bliss, and that got axed. So I don't know why that happened. There's a lot of rumors out there, which I'm not going to speculate on because dirt sheets are dirt sheets. Yeah. But I mean, what do you think of this? Like, where do you think this can go?
Where do I think this can go? Good question, man. That's a tough one, right? It could literally go anywhere, and I think that's the magic with this storyline. But the whole combination of Bray and Alexa, it was just so out of left field that no one was expecting it, like you said. And it's working for me. It really is. And I'm not sure if it's working because it's just so different and it's captivating because it's different, or if there's actually, you know, going to be some big payoff with this. I'm really trying to figure out where it could go. Like, it feels like it should lead to another Universal Championship for Bray, but maybe this character doesn't need, or WWE Championship, I should say. This character doesn't need a title. I don't know. I legit don't have a clue where it's going.
Yeah, it's so hard to figure out. Like, you kind of thought, okay, they're kind of wedging them in now to the thing with Drew and Randy. That's kind of where you thought they were going. But then last night, like I said, they were supposed to have Drew on Moment of Bliss, and then that never happened. So then you're like, well, okay. I mean, Vince has been known to come in and change things up, before, you know, a couple hours before Raw starts. So it kind of seems that was what happened. But, you know, so now you don't know, like, whether or not. And yeah, Bray's character to me comes off as a character, and Jeff and I have talked about this on the show, that doesn't need a title. He's almost an Undertaker type character with the, you know, with the gimmick and stuff that he's using. But, you know, yeah, I mean, where does he go now? Like, you know, there's really no one left for him to feud with, I don't think, at this point, if they just drop him out of that story.
Well, I was kind of wondering also, like, with this whole Drew, Randy, and Bray, like, if Survivor Series has kind of put a hamper into the plans that they did have, it almost feels like they want TLC to be where Survivor Series is, and it's just the wrong time of the year for the feud that they want to have. I do feel like Survivor Series is unfortunately causing issues with WWE this year because they don't have NXT involved. They don't have the live fans to get invested in, like, the battle of the brands. They can't have superstars coming out on each other's show because you can only have so many people inside of the Thunderdome. So this whole year just kind of feels like Survivor Series has almost been a detriment to WWE being in the place that it is.
Yeah, that's a great point. I really think that the reason it may have been changed was just because of the fact that I don't think they wanted to have a main event where it was heel versus heel. I don't think they wanted Randy and Roman. I think that's why now Randy's going to, that's what makes me believe that Drew's going to win the title back, because then I think it'll be more traditional. You'll have Drew against Roman.
And also the build to Drew versus Roman is already there if they want to go into it. I believe
Yep.
they might have had that one match. I can't remember for sure, but they definitely built up to the idea of Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre with the whole Undertaker and Roman Reigns tagging together.
Yes.
They built up to that. So that match is there that they can sink their teeth into.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's kind of where I think they're going with this. But yeah, no, it's a good point because I mean Survivor Series is going to be, and if they and if they really wanted it to, I mean, Taker's going to be there.
Yeah.
We know he's not wrestling; he's just going to show up there. But if they really wanted to do something cool with Bray, they can have Bray come down and do something to it doesn't take him much to give him a mandible claw.
Yeah.
So if they
I
really
agree,
wanted to,
man, that needs to happen.
Fans would go insane. I mean, there's no question about. Imagine that's how the show ends. The lights go down, the red lights come on, and he attacks Undertaker. It's like, man,
beautiful. Thank you, Taker, and starting to fade to black, and then there's the Fiend laugh. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, it would break the internet, I think, at that point. But man. All right, Jeff, I've taken up long enough. So you have some questions for Conman?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a two-part question right here to start off, but SmackDown or Raw, which is right now the A show?
Oh, SmackDown. SmackDown.
Okay.
It's not even close. Yeah.
It's not exactly.
It's not even close.
Yeah, no, it's not. And we've talked about that on our show as well. So I guess my next part of that question is, what does Raw need to do to catch up with SmackDown to make it as good as SmackDown?
Honestly, the WWE won't do it. They need to drop the third hour. It's very, very tough to get through the 3 hours of Monday Night Raw at this point. They don't have a deep enough roster to truly make you care about all the filler matches that they put on the show. I would say that would be the easiest way to get people to care about your whole Monday Night Raw. But since that's not going to happen, they probably just need to find a way to take what the fans are asking for, give it to the fans, but then throw their own little spin on it. Something that is going to happen where the fans aren't expecting this to happen. Like we talk about the Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss. People talked about how Alexa Bliss looked a little bit like Harley Quinn and how she might eventually play Sister Abigail. I even believe that Adam Pacitti or Blampier, whatever one it is, made the video way back in the day discussing how he wanted to book Alexa Bliss as Sister Abigail. That is something that the fans have wanted for a while. And then they finally found a way to give it to them. So if they're able to create these characters that fans could get invested in and then throw a spin in some different direction, I think that is some way that you're going to be able to captivate the Monday Night Raw wrestling fans.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what's unfortunate is I think they had something with Raw Underground.
Okay, yeah.
If it had been developed, a little bit more, I don't think they gave it nearly enough time. But I feel like that could have been the type of thing to break up the monotony of the third hour. What would you say about Raw Underground?
I couldn't agree more with you. I actually, if you look through my Twitter at some point, there is a ton of tweets regarding Raw Underground. I thought it was unique enough, but they didn't have it quite finalized how they wanted to have it. And I thought there was 4 simple ways that you could have been able to get Raw Underground over. For me, it made sense if you would have had a 2-minute time limit on every single fight, like beat the crap out of each other for 2 minutes and see what happens, see if there's a winner. Introduce win, loss, and tie records that actually matter. Introduce some sort of ranking system. And at the end, you're fighting for, I know we got lots of championships, but throw in a Raw Underground championship, something that was only defended inside of Raw Underground. And if you had those rankings and you made the wins actually matter, I think you could have had something special there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I even thought at one point, if they did like a tournament style thing to crown a champion at the end or to give a trophy at the end, and you have a women's division as a part of it, you have the guys, and you do a tournament, and that's gonna fill up an hour, for a while. So, I was excited about it because it was so different. But at the same time, it's like you can't expect something to get over if you don't give it enough time.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, they didn't give it enough time to develop, and once people were actually getting invested in it, they stopped. Like I believe they stopped very shortly after Dabba-Kato versus Braun Strowman, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like it felt like they wanted to get Dabba-Kato over, and then once they did, they're like, okay, that's enough of that. And then we haven't seen him since.
Yeah, like I agree with you both. Like it seems to me that could have been a great place, and I think Jeff and I talked about this too. Like it could have been a great place to bring people back to wrestling. The Four Horsewomen would have been perfect there. Brock Lesnar would have been perfect to come back in there. I mean, a lot of people are saying, imagine Brock shows up there and ends up fighting Bobby Lashley, two former UFC guys. Like it could have been a great place for a lot of this.
I agree, man. I absolutely agree. And like they were getting somewhere with it too. Everybody seemed pumped to be in there. You know, it was always loud. And I don't know if this is just them acting or not, but like it always seemed like there was a different vibe when you got into Raw Underground.
I agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you know, I mean, obviously the first week with the dancers and all that stuff, that was a little over the top. I mean, let's just be honest.
It's 2020. That wasn't going to go over well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was a little much. But, you know, once they got into the flow that following week, it was like, okay, we've got something here. Let's just build on it. And, you know, if you keep throwing random matches at us, you know, for a little bit, it's like, okay, well, you know, let's plan this out a little bit. And then we got that week where they advertised Kevin Owens and Aleister Black, you know, in there. And that was like, okay, this is going to be really cool. So, but yeah, I hate that they didn't give it time.
Yeah.
Speaking of Aleister Black, what are your thoughts on him, and what do you think right now is the missing link? Like what's standing between him and superstardom?
It's a tough line to walk, because it seems like for a little bit there they were doing the right things, trying to present him as like this mysterious figure backstage almost, who has this like really dark room and people got to knock on a door, and when he answers the door, he fights them. It wasn't much, but at least it was something to introduce his character. After that, they started putting him in random nonsensical tag team matches with Humberto Carrillo, and it just kind of fell down the card, right? It almost feels like at this point, people don't care about him because we know it's not going to go anywhere. Every time he gets in a fight with someone, it just doesn't move forward. And that's the problem with Aleister Black's character. When he was in NXT, every time he fought someone, the next person that he fought after them was a bigger person or a stronger person or higher up on the card. Now it just feels like, we're going to throw him out there with whoever needs to fight this guy, right? Like it doesn't have a lot of long-term thought behind.
Right. Yeah. I think he's a guy that, if given the correct opportunity and in booking, could be a mega star, but it's just,
you don't have to look far, just down to NXT.
Right.
He was great in NXT.
Exactly. Okay, so now I'm going to switch a little bit to the women's divisions. And I won't talk about how, well, I guess I am talking about how Nia Jax continues to throw Lana through tables, which
8 weeks straight. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a little bit of consistency there. But, you know, honestly, the one thing that I'm really excited about is SmackDown's women's division. And do you think we're on a collision course for Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair?
I believe so. Yeah. I think she might even be the one who wins the Women's Royal Rumble this year. Her video packages have been really quite cool and a little different as well, which is good to see. Yeah, I think Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks is the WrestleMania match.
And do you think there's a chance that Bianca at that point is ready to take over that championship and go forward, or you think maybe there needs to be a little bit more time?
Ready, she could be. Will they do it is the bigger question, because Sasha Banks has never had her big year as champion or anything like that, right? She hasn't had the massive wins when she needs to. We just finished the storyline of her overcoming a title defense, right?
Mhm.
So I'd like to see a great match between them, but at that point, it almost feels like it might be a Rhea Ripley situation versus Charlotte Flair, where she's almost ready. She's almost at that point, but she's in the ring with a bigger star. And the bigger star on the bigger stage is going to pick up the win usually. So I'd say she could be ready. It would be a great moment if it did happen, a great WrestleMania moment, but I'm not holding my breath that it's actually going to happen at Mania.
Yeah, I would have to say almost too, like there's so many factors they could throw in for Mania as well. Like, I mean, you know Vince, Jeff, and I mean, there's a lot of time when that's going to be when he might be bringing people back. You might see, you might see Charlotte coming back early in the year. You might see Becky. I mean, there's a possibility Becky comes back. You might see rumors are flying again about, oh my goodness. Ronda Rousey.
Ronda.
So I mean, you might that could be a time where some of these people start coming back, and as much as I love Bianca as well, I think that it's kind of about time that her character's gotten this nice like push that she's getting, but you almost hate to see, because when WrestleMania season comes around, these bigger names start to come back, and lo and behold, it becomes Sasha versus Charlotte, or Sasha versus Becky, or whoever, and then that person kind of tends to get pushed back out of the picture a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, you couldn't be more accurate with that. And like they also have potential people returning, like Sonya Deville. Like, who knows if they're going to push Sonya Deville to the moon whenever she's back, right?
Yep.
So things could certainly change.
Yeah, and just a side note on Sonya Deville, I really hope so, because honestly, the work that she was doing before everything happened, unfortunately for her in her personal life, she was really killing it. I mean, she was she was coming into her own.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, she had that same feeling as like Becky Lynch when she was just starting to break out.
Yep, absolutely. So another two-part question for you, and then I'll throw it back over to my partner. So obviously, everyone looks at the four horsewomen. You got Charlotte, you've got Becky, Sasha, and Bayley. I guess one of my questions would be, who do you think would be the next group of female talent to kind of take that mantle?
Ooh.
And the second part of that is there anyone right now, and you can give me a couple names in NXT, that you feel could improve either show's women's division?
Let me start with part two right there, because I don't have an answer for part one right at the second. But I do think, like I mentioned Rhea Ripley before, I think she could step in. You might even think before WrestleMania, just to kind of get her feet in the water, and then she could be the star going into SummerSlam. But I think Rhea Ripley is so close to being able to be on the main roster. Shotzi Blackheart for me is a character in the women's division that we don't have. And I don't think we have had since Paige. It's a different type of character that fans are going to be able to connect to. And I think Shotzi Blackheart has a ton of potential. And she also showed that she can work as a bit of a spooky gimmick during Halloween Havoc. It was a little cringy, but like it was still also good at the same time.
Right.
As for your first question there, though, for women that could come into WWE or on the main roster and just wreak havoc, I don't know. I think it would have to be like a combination of people from NXT, or a combination of people like from NXT and on the main roster. But you obviously have like a large roster of superstars that you could choose from. Pick anybody as like the lead, and then go from there with three people by their side.
It's good stuff. I think, for me, going forward in a couple years, I could see those four women being Bianca Belair, Sonya Deville, Rhea Ripley, and honestly, if we got to see how this whole retribution thing checks out, but Mia Yim, I think they could really be a solid core of a group that could really step in, because I mean, yes, Sasha is. I don't think she's 30 yet. I think she's like 28 or 29. But Bailey, Charlotte, and Becky are all over 30, I believe.
Mhm.
So at some point they're going to start, doing other things, or their focus is going to be on other places. And honestly, I think Hollywood could take three of the four.
Okay.
At some point, I think Charlotte, I think Becky, and I think Sasha could all be doing, stuff similar to The Rock and John Cena at some point in the next couple years. So you'll have to have a group of women that can kind of pick up that torch and run with it. So I think, it's just a matter of where we are in a couple years.
Mm-hmm. I've got a question for you, if you don't mind. Out of those three stars right there of Becky, Charlotte, and Sasha, who do you think has like the biggest star potential of the three, like outside of WWE?
That's a great question. I think it's a toss up between Sasha and Becky. And I'm kind of leaning a little more towards Sasha.
I'd agree with that, Sasha.
Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't have said that 6 months ago. I would have been more towards Becky and Charlotte. And I know Charlotte is doing a little bit more in that avenue right now, but there are some people that just have it.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole
and Sasha has it.
Sasha has it. Like she just has this star power that pops off of the screen. And even when you look at the trailer for The Mandalorian, it's like she's just popping off the screen, and she's in like the most dull clothing that you can have, but she just pops off the screen. So I think over the next couple of years, we could really see her start to get a lot more opportunities to be in television and film, and there's no telling where she can go from there.
Let me just interrupt you there, being the big Star Wars fan that I am. If she ends up playing the role that many people think she's going to play, the word Star Wars will probably vault her immediately, if not sooner, into Hollywood in some way.
Do you mind me asking what this role is? I haven't heard of this.
So there was an animated series that came out years ago called Rebels, Star Wars Rebels. In that series, which the creator of Rebels, his name's Dave Filoni. He's one of the ones who is co-directing The Mandalorian. He's co-directing with Jon Favreau. Filoni has always been in charge of their animated stuff. So he did Clone Wars as well.
Okay.
Filoni's a big fanboy, like really loves. I mean, he's been tutored by Lucas and so, but he created this kind of ragtag group of characters that kind of were the foundation for where the rebellion kind of started, and that was what the series was about. There's a female bounty hunter because the Mandalorians, the race, are very prominent in that series because they're still around then, and they're still having the Mandalorian Wars and this and that. Well, one of them, her name is Sabine. She is one of the ones that kind of goes away from them and comes and joins this little ragtag group that he's built up. And another reason everybody kind of thinks that it's going to be her is that when the series ended, she's kind of gone out and she's gone on her own and kind of searching for her people and that have been scattered and things like that. And also another kind of giveaway was the fact that she's got blue hair.
Oh, there you go.
it was okay. Who could she be playing that she might have blue hair? And then everybody's like, "Oh, is she playing Sabine?" And so, yeah, if that ends up happening, it's such a fan favorite character, even though it was in an animated series and not necessarily in a film or anything like that. But it's if that ends up being the case, that could just explode for her, and that would be tremendous.
That's massive, man. I haven't heard about that. So huge for Sasha Banks. Massive.
Yep. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right. Well, let me see if I can get some a couple more questions out there for you. So just tell me as we go forward, what do you think lies ahead for the future of now? Let me ask first, and we'll get to this before we end the show, because I want you to make sure you tell all our listeners about what. So do you have watch-alongs for every WWE show? So do you do NXT? Do you do SmackDown? Do you do Raw? And do you do the pay-per-views as well?
Yep, pretty much my tagline is every time WWE is live, I am live.
Okay, fair enough.
So Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, pay-per-views, I'm live for all of that.
Oh, okay, you do AEW as well.
Yeah,
okay.
I do a multi-stream of like both NXT and AEW, and I kind of just converse about whatever I'm watching at the time.
Okay. Well, let me ask you. Well, there you go. That's a great point. Let me ask you, what do you think about look, brand new company. They started back in September of last year. They just had their 1-year anniversary. What do you think about the job that they're doing? I mean, again, very, very mixed. Just out of the blue, I did a poll yesterday on our Twitter page, and I said, just let me know what promotion really you were really enjoying. I mean, it was overwhelming vote for WWE, but then AEW was, the next in line, and then you kind of had Impact, and you had some of the others. But how do you think they've done in their first year?
It's been good. It's not without its hiccups for sure. I've enjoyed it, but the characters were a little difficult to get invested in right off the start. And I think that's where I didn't quite get connected with AEW right away. Also, I was a little bit of in the mindset where I'm like, I want NXT to do better, because I've been watching NXT since like NXT Arrival on the WWE network. I loved it. But over the last year, AEW's actually topped NXT in terms of my favorite brand on Wednesdays, which really feels weird for me to say, honestly, because I love NXT, but AEW has found a great way to get me invested in the characters that I wasn't invested in. The Dark Order, I thought they were crap. Now they're really fun,
Yeah.
And the Jon Moxley character, I was invested in him because he was a WWE guy, but they actually got me to invest in the Jon Moxley character to the point where saying Dean Ambrose sounds weird to say. I think they've done, honestly, a really good job. The presentation of Cody's been good. Darby Allin's been fun to see rise up the card. And then the tag team division. You can't say enough great things about the tag team division. FTR Revive, or FTR Young Bucks. You can go on and on. Lucha House Party is in WWE, not AEW, but that's a mistake on my end. What's their name? The
Luchasaurus.
Luchasaurus. There we go. That's the one I'm going for. Yeah. Oh, that one. They're pretty fun to watch as well in the ring. But yeah, AEW been pretty solid over its first year.
So let me ask you this. Do you think NXT would be better moving away from them? I mean, it's been debated. It's been talked about. A lot of people are saying, you know what, Vince, just don't. No, not Vince. It's Triple H. But just, look, there doesn't need to be. You don't need to be going up against each other. They're two very different shows. So why not just take NXT? They did it a few months back. Move them to Tuesday. Move them to Tuesday. And I think really it's probably going to benefit both shows.
It would benefit both shows. And I can tell you that straightforward here. When I did the watch-alongs for Tuesday NXT and Wednesday AEW, I have never seen a group of happier wrestling fans. People who wanted to watch NXT were able to watch NXT. People who wanted to watch AEW could watch AEW. And the people who wanted to watch both could watch both. Yep. It was really, really good for the time. And I honestly, I really wish they would move it to Tuesdays. But Vince and Triple H, they got massive egos, and they don't want to admit the fact that they're losing. They're losing the Wednesday Night Wars. They are not providing as good of a show as AEW has been over the last little bit, and it shows in the ratings. It would be most beneficial for everyone if they moved it to Tuesdays.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's all
about.
Sorry,
not to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
But the only problem there, though, is if they go on Tuesdays, Impact Wrestling will need to figure out what they're doing, because that would all but kill the company, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And Jeff and I are big fans of Impact.
Agreed.
In fact, we do Impact watch-alongs every week, which I'll that's something that I just started watching like back with Slammiversary, and I've actually really, really loved it. I think they're doing an amazing job there. And yeah, that's a great point. Because again, if they're going to go, then you've got NXT going at 8:00. That's right when Impact airs. So that would definitely cut into them. Yeah, I agree with you.
It'd be difficult for Impact to find a way around, but they're survivors, right? If it did end up happening, I'm sure they would figure out how to navigate the new waters. But I just got one big question: is who shot Bravo?
Oh, let's not talk about that, shall we?
Well,
We've been yeah. Somehow I really don't know how this happened, but somehow my name had gotten out there because I'm such a big fan of Rosemary. So it's kind of a running joke with us in our community, but yeah. I don't know that. To me though, that's brilliant. I absolutely love it. To me, it that kind of stuff goes back to things for me, like being an old timer and seeing some of this stuff going on. I mean, back all the way to the 80s when you had Dallas on TV and it was the whole Who Shot JR storyline. I mean, to me, it's brilliant. And I love the whole thing that they had with Wrestle House. And I love the fact that they brought those characters back and then they're still going with a lot of the same people. And dude, I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic.
It's so funny because you say Dallas right there. I'm going to show my age. I actually connected it to Who Shot Mr. Burns from The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? That probably could have been where they've taken that from down through the line. But yeah, no, that's a good call. But
a lot of people in the live chat were saying it was about it was a reference to Dallas as well. I'm like, I've never even heard about it, so I
well,
like I said,
it's us old timers that were around in the 80s that remember that one. But yeah, it's
and honestly, it made me think of the back in the day storyline with Junkyard Dog and Michael P.S. Hayes with the cream in the eyes.
Oh yeah.
That kind of made me think about that because it's this whole mystery outside of what we normally see wrestling as. So, that again showing age, but
yeah. I'd love to be able to comment on that. I unfortunately can't.
Oh man, you know what? It's just see again to me. I enjoy it because I think they really do a great job there with storylines. They really do. Like they just grab your interest, and a lot of their program is you get the wrestling matches, and then in between you get these longer promos that go on for 1, 2, maybe 3 athletes at a time. They'll do these promos and stuff, but they really know. They do it well. They just really know how to do it well. And they've got some really good people over there. And, Jeff and I talk about that all the time. Their women's division and their tag team division is really amazing. Fantastic. Like really, really amazing. Like they could compare with their tag team division can compare with AEW. And their women's division is right up there probably with NXT and WWE's. Like they've got some really good people there.
Well, I mean, the North is just absolutely unbelievably good.
Yes, they are.
Ethan Page. I don't necessarily personally know him, but a buddy of mine who used to be on the channel, he's quite good friends with Ethan Page. Grew up with him in Hamilton, Ontario. So he's kind of a friend of the channel, I guess you could say. Okay. And I've been following his career for quite some time, and it was just really good seeing them win the tag team titles and go on to hold them for I don't know how long it was. Was it over a year?
Yeah, they had them for a while, and now they've got them back. Again.
Yeah, they're great.
Ethan seems like a good dude. Like I was on his Twitch stream earlier today watching him play the Avengers game on his Twitch stream. So yeah, I mean, he seems like a genuinely good guy, and a lot of them do. And I mean, though Jeff will tell you those matches that they had with the Motor City Machine Guns, like a tag team clinic. Tag team clinic where you're watching, and a lot of they get away from this a lot in WWE and even in AEW, where you don't see them classic tag team wrestling where one guy's both guys double teaming one guy tagging out and in constantly doing all that kind of stuff, staying over by their partner and doing that. But it was just a clinic. It was an absolute clinic.
I think that would definitely be my biggest pet peeve with current tag team wrestling is the lack of following the rules. Holding onto the tag rope, making sure that your feet aren't on the bottom rope when you tag in. Little things like that. It just makes tag team wrestling feel so much better when they follow the rules.
Absolutely, man. So where do you see the future for both of these companies? And I guess we can end here because it's kind of a general question, but I mean, where do you see the future of a company like AEW where they're brand new and where they're going to go? And then also, I mean, where, there was some question thrown in there about WWE because people people were saying maybe they're going to sell. They're going to, somebody's going to buy them. There was rumors about Disney maybe buying them because they already own Fox and so on and so forth. So, I mean, who knows when Vince is going to step away, if ever. That man can be there as long as Jerry Jones is going to be with the Dallas Cowboys until the man drops over one day. But, I mean, where do you see the future for both of these companies?
Honestly, I think professional wrestling is in good hands. We've got a lot of good, smart, young people coming up through the business right now. I just think, though, right now we can kind of compare it to the mid-90s. There's people being developed right now on both brands, and there's stars that are coming up through the brands, but they're not quite established yet. I do think the future looks very, very bright once fans return. I think that's going to inject a brand new life into wrestling. It's almost going to be the reset button that we all feel collectively that we need. But for the most part, I think wrestling is in good hands. Vince McMahon, he might be there for a little bit longer, but I think the writing's on the wall with the idea of him flirting with potentially selling, like you said. Triple H is rising up through the company every single day. I don't think we're that far off from seeing a new leaf turned inside of WWE. I am more optimistic for the future of AEW than I am WWE, though, if I can be honest there.
Yeah.
I think they are being run in all the right ways where they make the talent happy first, as opposed to worrying about their pockets and how much money is in them. They're really worried about the health and safety of their performers, and they allow them to do side ventures, which, let's face it, wrestlers, that's all they've ever wanted to do, to be able to go compete in other companies while they're the champion of their company. They want to represent their brand. The whole territory days, that's all it was about. So I think the future of AEW is very, very bright for those reasons. We're seeing like Thunder Rosa come in, defending the NWA Women's Championship, and putting a spotlight on that championship, which then is going to make the people that hold the title after her even more important. It's a really good formula right now. So I'm very optimistic for AEW.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Thunder Rosa is awesome. We had the privilege of interviewing her early on when we were doing this. Yeah, we have her interview on our channel. She's amazing. Just talk to us about where she came from and her drive and passion and how, I think Jeff asked her a question about what, advice she would give to a woman who wanted to come up in wrestling. And it was just absolutely tremendous. She's a really, really good person. We wish her nothing but the best. And I think that she's got a very bright future.
Absolutely, she does. Absolutely, she's a star. Like, she straight up is a star, and is only going to get better from here.
Absolutely, man. Well, listen, really, really appreciate you taking the time with us today. Tell our community and our viewers out there, if they don't know about you or have not seen you, where they can catch you and where they can, can find you as far as social media. And you already told them what you stream, so let them know where they can get a hold of you.
All right. Well, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Conman167, just the numbers 167. Simple as that. And that's pretty much my social media. I do have an Instagram. If you want to follow me at Conman167 WWE, you can do that, but I don't really post over there. Pretty much just my YouTube and my Twitter. But
Very cool,
dude,
man.
it was great being on this. I've been looking forward to it. Seriously, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely, man. Anytime. Again, it's great to hear from someone who's again doing positive things with wrestling out there. Trying to be as positive as you can with all of this, because as I was saying, sometimes it gets a little rough. It can be tough to stay that way with. And like I said, really, I think people just need to look at this as, hey, with everything that's going on around us outside, let's, take a couple hours, get away from it all, and just come in and just enjoy the show that we're seeing on TV for what it is. Enjoy it as entertainment, have fun with it. And I'm sure your community does that as well when they're listening to you. So it's really a pleasure talking to someone who is positive and doing that same kind of thing, man. Really, really appreciate you coming on with us today and spending some time.
Well, thank you so much for having me, man. Seriously, it was a blast.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you. Yeah, sir. Come back anytime, and good luck with everything, man.
Well, thank you. And yeah, we'll talk again in the future. Let's make this happen again.
Absolutely.
You know what,
buddy.
Joe? I've got one last question.
Go ahead.
And this is very late, but are you watching Talking Shopomania 2? on
I
Friday.
might just have to. I might just have to.
You know what, dude? Honestly, if you are going to come on over to our stream, because we're streaming it.
Okay.
So, like, literally come into the chat and just say hello, because, dude, I'm telling you, you will never laugh as much as Jeff and I, when we did the first one, did nothing but laugh for almost 2 hours.
What time are you guys live? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. What time are you live?
Oh, what are we starting? 9:45, I think, Friday night, Jeff?
Yeah. 9:45.
So
Right.
quarter to 10, and then the show starts at 10.
Well, we'll have to stop on over there. Maybe we'll do a nice little raid at the end of the live stream as well.
Oh, there you
That
go.
would be
Oh, that's
cool.
right. Yeah, you'll be doing SmackDown. That's
Yes.
right. Yeah.
We'll be finishing up just at 10 o'clock, so maybe we'll roll right into there.
That'd be awesome, man. Yeah, come and join us, because I guarantee, man, you will. I think they're going to do some poking fun at Retribution and things like that.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I'm there.
It's going to be fun, man. It is going to be a fun show. So yeah, well, good. Then we'll see you on Friday for that, man.
Sounds good, man. Thanks again for having me.
You got it, buddy. Have a great rest of your night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care, man.